See someone watching a race they should have been running in? They stand at the edge of the track, shoes untied, arms crossed, watching everyone else pull ahead. Maybe they stretch a little. Maybe they talk about getting ready, but they don't move. And while they're thinking about it, life keeps going. The clock keeps ticking. The others keep running. The race doesn't stop. It just moves on without them. And then one day, something clicks. They realize they're behind, maybe way behind. And now it's not just about running, it's about catching up. It's about reclaiming lost ground. And that requires something different. It requires more effort, more urgency, more discipline, because the one who starts late doesn't get to jog. The one who starts late has to run twice as fast. This isn't a message for people who got an early start. This is for the ones who drifted, who delayed, who told themselves, I'll start soon, and didn't. This is for the ones who wish they had begun earlier. In their career, in their health, in their habits. And now they're looking at the clock, realizing how much time has passed. But here's the truth. You don't need to feel ashamed. You just need to get honest. Because there's still time to run. You can still move forward. You can still build something meaningful. But you need to understand something right out of the gate. Starting late doesn't mean it's too late, but it does mean you'll have to move with a different kind of energy. See, when you start late, you don't have the luxury of casual. You can't afford to put things off another day. You can't rely on slow and steady. You have to be sharp. You have to be focused. You have to be disciplined in a way that others don't. You don't have time to waste. Not anymore. That's not pressure. That's clarity. And clarity is powerful. Because once you know the cost of delay, you stop negotiating with distraction. You stop letting comfort run your schedule. You stop trying to keep pace with people who aren't behind. Because you're not trying to match their pace. You're trying to close the gap. And you can, but it won't happen by accident. It won't happen by hoping. It'll happen because you decided that today is the day you stop falling further behind. It'll happen because you're willing to do what it takes to catch up. This isn't about comparing your life to someone else's. It's about taking responsibility for your own. It's about looking at the time you lost and deciding to redeem it. It's about turning regret into fuel, hesitation into action, and showing the world, and more importantly yourself, what can happen when someone gets serious. So if you're starting late, fine, start late. But start strong, start focused, start with urgency, because the one who starts late has to run twice as fast. It costs you so much to wait. And that's what I want to talk about, what it costs to wait, and why you can't afford to waste another day. Most people think the cost of waiting is just time. They convince themselves they'll start next month or get serious after this season calms down. They believe the delay is harmless, that nothing's really lost. But that's not true, because while you wait, things move. Momentum shifts, habits fade. Confidence slips, and slowly, silently, the hill you'll have to climb gets steeper. Waiting doesn't just cost you time, it costs you position. While you're thinking about getting started, someone else is already 5 reps in. While you're planning your comeback, someone else is already building theirs. The world doesn't pause because you're not ready. And by the time you finally move, you're not starting where you left off. You're starting further back. Think about fitness. You skip one workout, no big deal. Skip a week, you lose a little rhythm. Skip a month, and now you're dealing with lost strength, lost stamina, lost motivation. You're not just starting over, you're starting behind. And the effort required to get back to where you were That's double, maybe more. That's the real cost. Or take money. You delay saving or investing because it's not a good time. A year goes by, then 2. And while you were waiting, compound interest kept working for someone else. You didn't just miss out on a little growth. You missed out on years of leverage. Now you're playing catch up. And catch up is always more expensive than consistency. And it's not just physical or financial. Delay affects your mindset. The longer you wait to make a decision, the more comfortable indecision becomes. The longer you stay inactive, the more your confidence erodes. You stop trusting your ability to follow through. You doubt your own word. Not because you're weak, but because delay dulls sharpness. It wears you down in places you don't even notice until one day you don't recognize yourself. That's the quiet cost of waiting. It doesn't scream. It doesn't break down your door. It just slowly rearranges your priorities until excellence feels like a fantasy and survival feels like a win. Delay makes you softer, less decisive, less confident. And by the time you finally get moving again, it feels twice as hard because it is. Waiting steals opportunities. Doors don't stay open forever. Relationships fade. Openings close. Momentum cools. That conversation you meant to have. That risk you meant to take. That goal you meant to chase. Waiting doesn't just delay it. It sometimes removes it. Some windows don't come back. And when they do, they're smaller than before. Now, this isn't to scare you. It's to wake you up. Because the idea that waiting is neutral, that you can hit pause on life and pick it back up whenever you're ready, is a lie. Time doesn't hold still for anyone. The longer you delay, the more intense the work becomes. That's not punishment. That's reality. And here's the most frustrating part. Most people don't even know how much ground they've lost until they start trying to make it up. They think they're just a few steps behind until they get moving and realize the terrain's changed. The work feels harder. The pace feels faster. And that's when the real challenge begins. But here's the good news. Once you see this clearly, you stop playing games with your potential. You stop saying that you'll start next week because you understand what that week really costs. You stop treating time casually because you finally see it for what it is, your most valuable resource, and you treat it like something worth protecting. Waiting may feel comfortable in the moment, but it builds pressure in the background. And that pressure doesn't disappear. It stacks. It accumulates until the weight of everything you delayed comes crashing down at once. And now you're not just starting the work, you're digging out from underneath what you avoided. So if you've been delaying, if you've been saying soon or eventually, or that you'll get to it, it's time to stop. Not out of guilt, out of clarity. Because the longer you wait, the harder it gets. And the hard truth is this: the work still has to be done. The only difference is whether you do it now, when the slope is manageable, or later, when it's a climb. And if you're starting late, that climb might already be steep. But the answer isn't to complain about the incline. It's to accept it, adjust your pace, and start moving anyway. Because no matter how far back you feel, the way forward is always the same. One disciplined step at a time. Here's what else we got to talk about. Why the work is unavoidable, and how to embrace it with focus and urgency instead of frustration or fear. There's a truth most people eventually have to face. No one escapes the work. No matter how talented you are, no matter how far behind you feel, no matter how much you wish things were different, the work is the price. You don't get to skip it. You don't get to sidestep it. Sooner or later, it has to be paid. Those who started early, they're not exempt. They just spread the cost out over time. Their discipline was stretched across years. They built quietly while everyone else was distracted. Maybe they started saving in their 20s. Maybe they built healthy routines early. Maybe they read, studied, grew without much attention. And now it looks like they've got it easy. But they don't. They just paid the price in advance. If you didn't start early, you're not doomed. You just have a different price to pay. You'll need to move with more intensity, more urgency, more precision. The time they took to build slowly, you now have to compress. You don't get to cruise. You don't get to wander. You have to lock in and move with purpose. And that's not unfair. It's math. You can't do less and expect more. You can't move slower and hope to catch up. If you're behind, you don't get to use the same pace as everyone else. Your pace has to match your position, not your preference. The mindset has to shift from "I'll get there eventually" to "I have no time to waste." You can't afford delay anymore. You can't afford half effort or inconsistent focus. You can't afford to say yes to everything. You've got ground to make up. And that means your decisions need to reflect your urgency. But here's the part people miss. That urgency isn't punishment. It's privilege. It's a chance to accelerate, to close the gap, to see what happens when you give your full focus to something that matters. Some people waste their time wandering, but you've already wandered. Now it's time to move. So what does that look like? It looks like tightening up, removing the fluff, eliminating low-value habits, saying no more often, protecting your time like it actually means something. Because it does. Every hour now matters more than it used to. Every day now holds more weight. And if you've been telling yourself, "I'll just do a little each day and see what happens," that mindset might need to change. A little each day might work for someone who started a decade ago. But if you're trying to catch up, that strategy won't cut it. You need to do more than a little. You need to do what it takes. That doesn't mean burnout. It doesn't mean no sleep, no rest, no balance. But it does mean intention. It means you stop wasting time on things that don't build. It means you stop chasing comfort and start chasing progress. It means you stop waiting for the right mood and start building the right momentum. Every outcome you want still requires work. That hasn't changed. The only difference now is the timeline. You're working in a tighter window. That window might be narrow, but it's open. You still have a shot. You just can't afford to move like the ones who started on time. This is the reality most people avoid. They want the success, but not the pressure. They want the results, but not the responsibility. But the truth is simple. The one who starts late has to run twice as fast. Not forever, but long enough to close the distance, long enough to reestablish momentum, long enough to earn back the time they spent drifting. So stop asking for it to be easier. Stop hoping for more time. Start asking what needs to be done today to move forward faster. Start planning your days with urgency, not wishful thinking. Start treating time like it matters, because from now on it does. You don't need to panic, but you do need to lock in. You need to decide that this season isn't just about making progress. It's about making up ground. Not because you're less capable, but because you've got more to carry. And that's okay. That's where strength is built. We're going to talk about how to move with urgency without panicking. How to channel pressure into precision. Because if you're going to run twice as fast, you can't just move harder. You need to move smarter too. Urgency is fuel, but if you don't handle it right, it turns into fire. It either lights the path forward or it burns everything down. That's why urgency alone isn't enough. It needs structure. It needs direction. It needs control. See, there's a big difference between moving with urgency and moving in a panic. Panic is scattered. It's emotional. It makes decisions based on fear. Urgency is different. Urgency is focused. It's measured. It makes decisions based on clarity. When you finally wake up to how much time you've lost, there's a natural instinct to want to fix everything at once. You want to change your health, your finances, your habits, your mindset, all in 1 week. But that kind of emotional intensity usually burns out fast. It's not sustainable. It leads to overwhelm, not breakthrough. What you need isn't frantic motion. It's controlled momentum. It's energy directed with intention. You don't sprint in every direction hoping to land somewhere useful. You pick your direction, you tighten your routine, and you lock in. You don't need more speed. You need more precision. So how do you build urgency without burning out? First, get clear on what actually matters. When you're behind, you don't have time for fluff. You don't have time for distractions disguised as progress. You need to identify the handful of actions that will actually move you forward and eliminate everything else. Ask yourself what's essential, what's high leverage, what are the 2 or 3 things done daily that will close the gap fastest, and then ruthlessly protect those things. Put them on your calendar. Build your day around them. Make them non-negotiable, because when you're behind, not every task gets the same weight. Second step, design a rhythm you can actually sustain. Don't build a routine based on how motivated you feel today. Build one based on what you can execute tomorrow and the next day and the day after that. Urgency doesn't mean you never rest. It means you rest with intention. You recover on purpose. You use your downtime to recharge, not to avoid. Panic leads to burnout because it tries to fix everything at once. Urgency leads to results because it focuses on what matters most and builds around it. It's not about how much you can do in a day. It's about whether the right things are getting done every day. Third step, control your environment. If you want to move faster, eliminate friction. Set your clothes out the night before. Plan your meals ahead. Keep your workspace clean. Remove digital clutter. Turn off the TV. Make your environment reflect your focus. The more friction you remove, the more energy you save. And when you're trying to move twice as fast, saved energy becomes gained time. Fourth step, manage your mindset. Don't let urgency turn into self-punishment. This isn't about beating yourself up for the past. This is about moving with clarity because you understand the value of time now. Replace guilt with discipline. Replace regret with consistency. You don't need to fix everything you missed. You just need to stop missing what's in front of you. And here's something worth remembering. The people who seem to be ahead of you, you're not racing them. They're not your competition. You're racing your own delay. You're racing the time you gave away. And if you keep looking sideways, comparing your speed to theirs, you'll slow down. Comparison drains focus. Keep your eyes forward. Run your race. Urgency should feel clear, not chaotic. You should be able to point to your day and identify the moves you're making and the ground you're reclaiming. It shouldn't be a blur of busyness. It should be focused action with clear direction. That's the difference between pressure that builds progress and pressure that breaks you. So yes, move with intensity, but don't panic. Don't throw everything at the wall. Don't build routines you can't maintain. Create a plan, tighten your focus, eliminate distractions, and then get to work. Because urgency isn't just about moving fast, it's about moving right. So what does this look like on a practical level? What does it mean to build faster, smarter, and leaner? Because if you have to run twice as fast, you also have to run with strategy. If you're behind and you're serious about catching up, then speed alone won't save you. Hustle isn't enough. Hard work, while necessary, can be wasted if it's pointed in the wrong direction. If you have to run twice as fast, then you also have to run twice as smart. The person who started early had the luxury of experimentation. They had time to figure things out. They could afford a few missteps, a few wasted efforts. You don't have that margin. Every move has to count. Every action has to matter. The cost of wasted motion is higher now, so your strategy needs to tighten. That starts with clarity. When you're behind, the first step isn't to do more. It's to define what actually moves the needle. Don't get tricked into thinking busy equals progress. That's how you stay stuck. You can't afford to be active and unproductive. You need leverage, actions that create momentum, actions that make other actions easier or unnecessary. So ask yourself, what are the few things, if done consistently, that will create the biggest shift in your life over the next 90 days? What are the high-value habits, the high-leverage decisions, the non-negotiables? Find those and build everything else around them. Cut the rest, seriously, ruthlessly. Audit your day. Look at your calendar. Look at your habits. What's essential? What's background noise? What's giving you return? And what's just tradition, distraction, or ego? The leaner your schedule, the clearer your mind. And when your mind is clear, your movement becomes powerful. This applies to people too. Who you let speak into your life, who you give time to, matters more than ever. You're in a season where your environment can either accelerate you or drain you. So ask, who reinforces your direction? Who pulls you off course? Build around the people who keep you sharp. Limit the ones who don't. Next, simplify your systems. You don't need complex workflows. You need daily actions you can repeat with clarity. Morning routines that don't require decision-making. Planning sessions that take 10 minutes, not an hour. Tracking habits in a way that's visible and satisfying. The goal is repeatability. The goal is execution without friction. Momentum is built in simplicity. The fewer moving parts, the less you have to manage. And when you're trying to build fast, excess complexity becomes your enemy. Streamline everything, from how you plan your day to how you communicate your goals. Simpler systems allow for faster decisions, and faster decisions equal faster movement. But don't overdo it now. You have to maintain energy, because strategy means nothing if you're exhausted. You can't run twice as fast if you're running on fumes. That doesn't mean you need endless rest. It means you need smart recovery. It means your fuel matters. How you eat, how you sleep, what you feed your mind, what you allow into your space. Some people try to push through burnout. Others try to avoid the work altogether. But the smart ones, they manage energy like it's currency. They know when to push and when to pull back. They don't waste energy on distractions. They protect it, because energy is your power source. And if you want to move with force, you have to fuel the engine. And here's where most people fall short. They try to match effort with effort. But that's not the only way to close the gap. You can close it with insight, with creativity, with resourcefulness. The right idea, implemented well, can leap you forward faster than months of trial and error. But you only find those ideas when you slow down long enough to think. That's why part of building smarter is building in time to reflect, to evaluate, to regularly ask what's working and what's not. Not once a year, weekly, sometimes daily. When you're behind, you can't afford to keep doing something just because It's familiar. You need data. You need awareness. You need the courage to pivot fast when something isn't working. Running twice as fast doesn't mean you never pause. It means you pause with purpose. You rest with structure. You think with clarity, because every pause is a chance to realign your effort with your goal. And when alignment is tight, speed becomes sustainable. So if you're behind, yes, you need to move with intensity. But you also need to move with strategy. Not just harder, but smarter. Not just more, but better. You can't afford to waste motion, not anymore. Every move must count. That means you have to redeem time. And we're going to talk about what it means to redeem time. Not just catch up, but actually convert your past delay into future momentum. Because if you use this season wisely, the time you lost doesn't have to stay lost. It can become the very thing that makes you unstoppable. There comes a point where regret doesn't help anymore, where replaying the time you lost only slows you down more, where looking back has to stop, not because it wasn't real, but because it's no longer useful. That's the moment you stop reliving it and start redeeming it. Redemption doesn't mean pretending the delay didn't happen. It means choosing to squeeze value out of every missed opportunity. It means taking what should have held you back and turning it into fuel. Not by rewriting the past, but by rewriting what the past means to you. You can't go back and start sooner, but you can start smarter. You can start sharper. You can move forward with a kind of focus and clarity most people never experience, because they've never felt the cost of waiting. But you have. You know what it feels like to drift. You know what it feels like to fall behind. And because of that, you'll never waste time again. That's the advantage of starting late. You don't have illusions. You're not fooled into thinking time is endless. You know how fast it slips away, and that awareness becomes power. That urgency becomes clarity. You become someone who moves on purpose because you've already seen what happens when you don't. Redeeming the time starts with ownership. No more blaming the past. No more pointing at circumstances. No more wishing things had started sooner. Because the truth is, sooner is gone. All that's left is now. And now is more powerful than you think. Right now, you have the chance to create results that make the past irrelevant. You have the chance to move with such precision, such consistency, such purpose, that the time you lost becomes a setup, not a setback. It becomes the reason you're so committed, so focused, so locked in. That mindset of reclaiming time, of converting regret into action, that's what creates breakthroughs. That's what changes the trajectory of careers, health, relationships, self-respect. Not dwelling, not waiting, not hoping, but moving intentionally, daily, relentlessly. And it doesn't have to take long. When someone starts late but moves with discipline, they often outpace the ones who started on time but coasted. The early start helps, but it's not everything. Execution beats advantage. And there's no substitute for someone who's done drifting. So what does redemption look like in practice? It looks like no longer wasting mornings, no longer negotiating with your goals, no longer living on autopilot. It looks like building days you're proud of, days that compound into progress, days that make the version of you from 6 months ago look forward and say, that's who I was trying to become. It looks like forgiving yourself for the delay, but not excusing it, learning from it, leveraging it, taking every bit of pain and disappointment and turning it into resolve. Resolve to move better, live cleaner, decide faster, and stay consistent longer. Because time didn't beat you. You gave it away, but now you've taken it back. And that decision that one shift changes everything. From this point forward, your actions speak for you, not your apologies, not your intentions, not your explanations, just your habits, just your execution, just your results. You can't go back, but you can still rise. You can still build. You can still finish strong. And when you do, when you show yourself what's possible, you won't resent the time you lost. You'll respect it because it taught you something the early starters may never understand. Time is precious. And when you finally learn how to use it, you become unstoppable. Now let's close this out. Let's tie together everything you've seen, everything you've learned, and everything you're ready to do next. You might be starting late, but the race isn't over, not even close. And the finish line hasn't moved. It's still there, still waiting. The only thing that's changed is the distance between where you are and where you want to be. And that distance, it's not fixed. It's flexible. You can close the gap, not by wishing, not by explaining, but by moving with clarity, with urgency, with discipline. Not someday, today. The one who starts late doesn't get to jog. They don't get to coast. They don't have time to waste. But that's not a disadvantage. It's an edge. Because once you see how much time matters, you start using it like it matters. Every hour, every decision, every routine. This isn't about catching up to someone else. This is about catching up to the version of you that should have been here by now and showing up so strong, so consistent that no one can tell you started late. They just see someone who's moving with purpose. So no more looking back, no more apologies, no more stories about why you're behind. From this point forward, let your habits speak for you. Let your progress speak for you. Let your future speak for you. You may be starting late, but if you run with discipline, you can still finish strong.